return for touchdowns is probably the best player in that secondary.
Yeah, I think that he's done a really good job considering over the course of his career, he's really improved. And this year is kind of icing on the cake, he's really made opportunistic plays, made big plays. The interception at the end of the first half last week against Michigan State, I think, was maybe the biggest play of the game. And, of course, the punt return is a big one as well. But he's definitely, now that he's fully healthy, he was dealing with the hip issue last year. You're seeing the potential that we saw from him for several years, but now he's actually making the plays. So he's a difference maker. I think, obviously, along with some of the other guys in the secondary, that's maybe the most improved group on that defense. And I think they're a big reason why they're here right now.
Alabama's in the air right now, coming to Phoenix, having been on a long trip from the East Coast to the West Coast for a national championship. What do you think the mood is like on that airplane right now?
If it was anything like ours, there's a lot of funny business going on and a lot of pranks going on. A lot of guys scared to fly. And I remember flying from Birmingham to Los Angeles. That was the longest flight for 95% of the team, the longest flight they'd ever been on. So I remember a lot of people getting a little uneasy with the turbulence. But no, that's the things that you actually forget, that you remember and you appreciate probably more than most people would recognize are those team flights. It's a little scary sometimes, some of the stuff that goes on those things, with the heckling and unfastening people's seatbelts and shaking seats. And we had a guy that was flying for the first time. I won't say his name, but his name was Milton. I won't say his last name, that is. And he had never flown before, and we hit turbulence, and I swear he thought he was going to die. And it was the funniest thing ever, and we never let him live it down for 5 years. Good friends of us.
Greg, what do you think of the maturation process of Jake Coker?
Jake's done a really, really good job, I think, using his athleticism over the last 8 or 9 games and hitting throws down the field. And one thing that I think is so important about being the quarterback at a good school like Alabama is having the personality and the demeanor to be able to manage this, being able to manage all the extracurriculars that you have to deal with. And Jake is, he's very laid back, and he's allowed his talent to come into the forefront when given the opportunity. And really the big thing for him was just getting the guys to respond to him. And I think last year that was something that was so difficult for him because he got there in the summer and just didn't have the time to develop the relationships. Now, a year later, he's voted a captain. So his talent, of course, he's always had that. He's always been able to throw the football. He's always been able to move. He's always been athletic. But now I think he's doing more from an intangible role, and that's really benefited the team as they've moved into a championship opportunity.
What are your thoughts on Deshaun Watson?
Well, I think Deshaun is, one of the best players in the country at his position. He's capable of taking over the game at any moment. And I think if just flat out speed, the guy can really, really run. 4.4, I think, is what he's listed at. I think he's probably right there. Mid 4.4s, maybe low 4.4s. But I think one thing that gets overlooked, everyone wants to talk about his ability and athletic ability, but he's a really good passer, very accurate with the football, very decisive. He's only been sacked one time in the last 5 games. Now his workload over the last 3 games concerns me a little bit when it comes to running the football. 24 carries against Oklahoma, 24 carries against North Carolina, 21 carries, if I'm not mistaken, against South Carolina. That's a really heavy workload against a physical team like this. So I would expect Gallman to get a little heavier workload this week when it comes to running the football. But Deshaun Watson's one of my favorite players in the country. I love his intangibles. I love everything he brings to the position. I love his creativity, and I love how competitive he is. 18-1 as a starter, that speaks for itself.
What kind of game plan would you devise to sort of counteract the Alabama defensive line?
If I was Clemson, what I would try to do is I would incorporate as many jet sweeps and cross the field, cross the ball motions that I could possibly have. I want to get Alabama to run sideline to sideline. Now, Alabama is really, really big, but they're also really athletic. But if you try to run right into the teeth of that defense, you're not going to be able to achieve much. It's just the truth. Michigan State has one of the best offensive lines in college football. They had 2 All-Americans on there. and they couldn't do anything on the ground. In the last 10 quarters, Bama's allowed 45 rushing yards. I mean, if you run right into the teeth, you're going to have a difficult time. So if I was Clemson and I was Coach Scott or Coach Elliott, I want to get people running sideline to sideline and then try to crease them. So whether it's jet sweeps with Artavis Scott, whether it's trying to hand the ball to Gallman on the outside, whether it's using a couple running backs in the backfield at one time, whether it's getting Deshaun to roll out to his right and throwing a screen back to the left, get things going horizontally and then try to crease it vertically. But I think getting Reggie Ragland and Reuben Foster and some of those defensive linemen to take a step at an angle that is parallel to the line of scrimmage is imperative, because if you try to run right at them, it's going to be tough sledding.
Take me back to that Texas game. What did that do for launching what Nick Saban's been able to accomplish since then
I think
Alabama?
a lot of people, the 2009 season was, I think, obviously a breakthrough season, winning the national championship. I'm so proud to have been a part of that team and be associated with an undefeated football team. It was great, but really the 2008 season and the way things went down the stretch. 12-0 to start the regular season, it was a good performance, but losing to Florida in the SEC championship game, losing to Utah, that put a taste in our mouth that we never wanted to have again. And we went into the offseason very, very hungry. So that game against Texas was huge as far as getting over the hump and securing and winning a national championship, sure, but everything that was done leading up to that game was, I think, so much more important to what the program has now become. Beating Florida, they were the standard in college football at that point, with Tim and Urban Meyer and everything that they had done, having won the national championship in 2006, winning it in 2008, being undefeated 12-0 going into the SEC championship in 2009. Beating that team, I think, was really a statement game for us and a breakthrough game for us. And it's not really related. Alabama, each team is a little different. The 2008 version that beat Clemson 34-10 in the season opener has nothing to do with what this game is going to be. But I think those games, those experiences have allowed Alabama to have confidence in themselves on the big stage. And they've done it time and time again, and they should feel confident heading into this one as well, because they have a very good team, but they're going to have to beat obviously the best team in the country, according to all the polls.
Who's got better dance moves, Saban or Sweeney?
Oof, that's the lesser of two evils when it comes to their dance moves. Coach showed us a little something with the two arms, and then he kind of went to one arm, and then it went hands in the pocket. So, Coach Saban, not the best moves I've seen. I was just glad to see him celebrate. Coach Sweeney, though, I've seen him pull it out a little bit. He can rock it. I don't think any of those guys can dance like Baker Mayfield, though. He's the dancer of the year for me when it comes to college football.
Clemson will beat Alabama
When Alabama lost early, they lost the Ole Miss game.
Yes.
Was there any reason to think that they wouldn't be able to pull it back together and get to this point?
I don't see why people wrote them off the same way they did. Anybody that watched the Ole Miss game recognized the opportunities that they missed out on. And since that time, and Alabama has never been a team that has beaten themselves. I mean, it's very rare when they've beaten themselves. But 5 turnovers against forcing 0, and you have a -5 turnover margin, you lose by 6 to a ranked football team that just won a New Year's Six bowl game. That's pretty impressive. So I think, if anything, it allowed them to recognize, look, we can play that bad and come within one possession of potentially winning. I think that gave them a lot of confidence, but I don't think anyone should have ever written off this team. This is a team that has played in national championship games and SEC championship games almost on an annual basis since 2008. And, I think people jumped the gun a little early when it came to writing off this football team.
Okay, last one right here.
And then the final question would be, Clemson will beat Alabama if?
My big thing, I think, in order for Clemson to beat Alabama, Deshaun Watson has to have a performance similar to that of Vince Young in the 2005 Rose Bowl. And the thing is, he's capable of that. Passing it, running it, being creative enough behind the line of scrimmage, throwing the ball vertically down the field. Alabama's defense is as good as I've ever seen at this level. They are absolutely incredible. And Deshaun Watson, I think, with a performance that he's capable of, if he plays his best game, you could make the argument that he's the best player in college football. So it's really a good-on-good matchup. It's exactly what you want in a national championship game. I think that if Clemson gets off to a good start, Deshaun Watson plays well, they win the turnover battle, because I believe they're 42-4 when they win the turnover battle. with Dabo Swinney as their head coach. However, this year they have not been great when it comes to taking care of the football. 26 turnovers for the offense. I think that's 113th in the nation. So that's going to be important for them. Those three factors are always huge, but if Alabama lets Deshaun Watson become the player he's capable of becoming, then it could be a tough day.